A 7¼ inch gauge Sweet William steam locomotive. This is part 27. Refitting the boiler to the special expansion joints that I made was far more difficult than anticipated. With the boiler sat in place on the expansion joints, my original fixing plan seemed impossible. I think it's time to implement plan B. Here's the boiler sat on my expansion brackets between the frames. It's in exactly the position I want it to be in. Everything's sitting nice and level. All I have to do is simply bolt the boiler in place. Did I say simply? In reality, this job was far from simple and actually took, believe it or not, 2 hours to complete. I've quite enjoyed being a big person, but I could really do with much smaller hands for the job that's coming up. I'm stalling here by fitting the hoops that keep the cladding in place. These hoops fit around the boiler as shown, 2 on the firebox and 1 on the boiler barrel. The way they fit is quite clever, using bent wire to hold them together. Now that 2 of them are fitted around the firebox, I'm trying the heat-proof lagging in place to make sure that it fits. There is also 1 smaller hoop on the main boiler barrel. I think this is in the right place because there's a bit of a mark where it was previously. Here's a clip from part 5 of the series showing how I removed the boiler. Now with the expansion joint I cannot refit it in the same way. And now it's fun time. I have to release the boiler from the chassis at the back. This fitting is entirely wrong in just about every way possible. I don't mean the fitting on the boiler, that's fine. Here I'm lifting the boiler a bit higher and inserting another piece of mahogany because I need to work on this and it's difficult enough without it being too low. Health and safety warning: if you're doing a job like this, make sure any weight is securely held and cannot possibly fall onto your hands. Well, I couldn't believe my luck. These bolts that I thought were going to be a major problem were finger tight. This clip shows the original mountings for the boiler, and as you can see, there's no way to allow any expansion of the boiler whatsoever. The owner of the engine welded the 2 pieces of bar onto the brackets. I ran into problems during the milling operation of the steel blocks, so I cut them off and milled slots in the angle. The original plan was to bolt the steel angles back to the frames, and then use 4 M6 Allen cap-head bolts to secure the boiler to the expansion fitting, but that didn't seem to be a good idea anymore. Not only were the short M6 Allen cap-head bolts very difficult to line up, with an Allen key inserted in them, it was impossible to move the Allen key. At first I thought it would be a good idea to use some hexagon M6 bolts, and besides they would not line up. So I thought again. I need to do this from the other side. Obviously, with some help from my ancestors from beyond the grave, when I drilled the large M10 bolts and threaded them part of the way down, I drilled the holes all the way through. And the only reason I did this was to clear the swarf when I threaded the holes using an M6 tap. You can see what I mean if you look at the image on screen. And now I can use some 2BA studding to hold everything together. 4 of these will hold the boiler to the expansion joint very firmly. The only problem is I could only find 2 lengths of studding, so I need to make some more. Making 2 more studs the same length as the ones you've just seen was a very simple job. This one was already part threaded. I'm not using a tailstock die holder for this. Instead, I'm using a hand die holder with my guide that fits in the tailstock. And even though this is not proper engineering, it works quite well. As you can see, the quality of threads are very good indeed. I try and make a video every day, so anything that saves time suits me. A lot of my dies are pre-loaded into this hand die holder, and the guide is okay, it keeps it just in line enough to cut the thread. I put lock nuts on each of the pieces of studding because the original idea was to push them up from below and put a nut on the top, but this was incredibly difficult to do. It was very difficult to get my hands into the right position to fit the nuts on top of the studs. So instead I removed the lock nuts and turned away a bit of the thread to shorten the studs, applied Loctite 603 and fitted a nut at the end of each of the studs. I left them for a while for the Loctite to cure, and here's one of them. This is a gratuitous shot of the Loctite 603 curing, not something you see every day. And as an extra bonus, here's the Loctite 603 curing on not one but 4 pieces of studding. A while ago I was in the marketplace in a small town called Pocklington near York, and when I was there one day I bought these extra long nose pliers. They're not brilliantly finished, but they work very well and they're great for getting into inaccessible places. Using my late father's trusty crowbar, I'm levering the boiler into the correct position. These 2BA studs are the perfect length to drop into the holes using my extra long nose pliers. And here they are, all in position. I just need to fit a 2BA nut under each of the sliding components of the expansion joint. This should be straightforward. And in fact it was a very simple job. 2 2BA spanners, one above and one below. There's still not too much room to move in this area, but just enough for me to finish the job. The job is done, the boiler is bolted into place, and to celebrate I fitted the copper ring around the firebox. But this is only temporary. I still need to fit the heat insulation and the cladding to the firebox and the boiler, not forgetting to eventually use some brasso on the copper ring to make it shine. That's it for this episode. Stay safe, stay healthy, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.